It's been a crazy year. Many reviews were born this year, birthed from the maw of dedication, passion, and love for my craft. Thanks to you guys, I've been able to use this as a creative outlet for everything that is me. And I won't lie, I've needed it. It feels good. Some were positive, some were negative. But all of them counted. And that's what matters.
But only one can win.
Hey review family, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morris, the review guy, and I'm back again to bring you another video. You heard it right, it's that time of the year where I'm going to be doing my favorite albums of the year list video, something that everyone anticipates from every music reviewer that ever was. I'm a little late to the train because I wanted to fill my list out. I wanted to get some videos out that I wanted to get out prior to the release of this. But here we are. It's been a good year. There's been quite a few bad records, but there have been a lot of good records that I have enjoyed quite a bit. Obviously, I think it goes without saying, but I highly suggest you check out every single one of the albums that I talk about in this video, as well as all of the reviews for all of these albums are going to be listed in the description box below in alphabetical order. What I'm going to try to do for this list so it doesn't end up being like 5 hours long is just give little brief excerpts, and if you want to hear more of my thoughts about these albums, you can go watch the reviews, and hopefully I can turn you on to some new music from this video. Let's get right into it. At number 50, I have the Pinkish Black record, Concept Unification. Completely stumbled upon this record, really glad I did. It's a really interesting avant-garde take on drone and psychedelic and doom. At number 49, I have the Mortiferum album, Disgorged from Psychotic Depths. Very gritty, death and doom metal project, one of the better releases to come out this year, and that's saying a lot considering this has been an amazing year for death metal across the entire spectrum, specifically with all the $20 spin stuff. At number 48, I have the Infant Annihilator record, The Battle of Yal de Baoth. Really surprised by this release. It was one that I gave a fairly positive review to originally, got a little bit of backlash for because people don't seem to understand that Infant Annihilator is meant to just be over the top and be silly, and you're supposed to just have fun with them. But it really grew on me, and I was like, man, this really is one of the better deathcore records of the year, isn't it? At number 47, I have the Born of Osiris album, The Simulation. Really good return to form for the band in my opinion, and even though I am very pissed that they didn't come out with the second part of that this year, because Sumerian Records seems to be going in this business direction of making bands split their records in two. You had that with Between the Buried and Me last year with the Automata cycle, but this is the first record since The Discovery that I think lives up to that potential, and that's coming from someone that really loves Tomorrow We Die Live and Soul Sphere. At number 46, I have the Juice WRLD record, A Death Race for Love. I wrote my list before Juice WRLD passed, and I was like, should I put it higher? And I was like, I don't really want a death to affect how I place an artist because that doesn't really impact the music itself. He's still one of the most standout producers and one of the most standout rappers when it comes to the emo rap field, the emo trap field, and I really am sad that we don't get to see where he would have went in the future, and I hope they don't sap his posthumous releases or demos or whatever like that, because we know the industry really does have a habit of doing that. At number 45, I have the Feral Body album, In Brief Memoriam. The thing about this record is I kind of put it off for a little bit because I was getting quite a few recommendations from you guys, some very credible people that were recommending this release, and I'd known that I had liked some music they had suggested in the past, and when I checked it out, I was like, holy shit, this is good. While it is brief, this is one of the better screamo and post-hardcore and hardcore punk-esque records you're going to hear this year if you enjoy very confessional lyricism, very deep lyricism, if you like those really harsh screamo vocals, those shrieks, you're going to enjoy this. The instrumentation is very distorted, very heavy, very chunky. The riffs are heavy as all hell. At number 44, I have the Despised Icon record, Purgatory. Didn't really think that I was going to have a record this year that lived up to the magnitude of some of the best records in the deathcore genre. Despised Icon is one of the classics of the genre. You should listen to them anyway in their past discography to really see some of the places that the genre really came from, but I didn't think that a true blue, start to finish deathcore record without trying to be over the top, without trying to be static, without the most amazing production, and kind of following some very base level instrumentation and vocals and lyrics was really going to wow me this year. But that's exactly what this Despised Icon record did, and if you want to hear a classic in the genre kicking ass, check this record out. At number 43, I have the Whitechapel record, The Valley. On the subject of deathcore, this is a record that is a lot more dynamic. Take a track like Hickory Creek, where Philip Bozeman basically sings the whole song. Philip Bozeman really does flex his singing muscles on this record, and I'm very happy to hear that, because the dynamics, like I said on this record, are very talented, and it shows that the band is full of competent musicians, and not just people that can be super, super heavy and have a bunch of breakdowns, but more so can really put their heart and soul into their records to make it very unique. At number 42, I have the Ringworm record, Death Becomes My Voice. Kind of like Despised Icon, these guys have been kicking it since the late 80s, back before metalcore had a name, back before metalcore really had an identity. They were basically just being called like hardcore punk and crossover thrash, but in reality, Ringworm is one of the first metalcore bands that had that power, and they've consistently been dropping releases since their formation. Makes me a little sad that more people don't really pay attention to Ringworm, but they're one of the classics of the genre, and one of the best to do it in its true blue capacity. There's nothing too flashy on this record. The breakdowns aren't too flashy. The vocals are very hardcore punk inspired, because they came from an era when that was very popular and when that was kind of in its boom, which is what directly catapulted a lot of bands to develop that metalcore aggression into their sound, that metallic hardcore type of sound. But man, Ringworm really does kick it on this record. They have for a while, and I look forward to hearing more consistent releases from them. At number 41, I have the Denzel Curry record, Zoo, this little mini album, something that he has done in the past where he goes into a bigger project, but right before he does that, he drops an EP, a mixtape, although this is being stylized as an album in anticipation of that sound. A lot of catchy refrains, a lot of catchy hooks, a lot of snappy lyrics on tracks like Zoo, the self-titled track, as well as Ricky, which has one of the best rap choruses of the year. Denzel Curry really is kicking ass recently. Taboo was amazing. He has some great albums under his belt, and this is the second year in a row that he has made it onto my end-year list, so I guess I'm just really excited to see what he's going to do in the future. At number 40, I have the Caroline Polachek record, Pang, one of the best art pop and electro pop records of the year. Some of this record can be very unassuming, such as like So Hot You're Hurting My Feelings, as well as the self-titled track, Pang, or Insomnia, or whatever you want to pick. She's not jumping out at you with these pop semblances where it just has to be overly compressed and overly equalized and so loud in the mix, and it's blowing your ears out, and it's trying so hard to just ingrain itself in you with its catchy choruses. It doesn't need to do that. Caroline Polachek is an amazing vocalist. She has some great production backing her on this record, and overall, at the core of it, the tunes are just really good. At 39, I have Gauls Word with Gastier, Ghosts Invited, one of the better true blue black metal projects of the year. I remember I was really anticipating it. Gaul is obviously the frontman of this band. He is a experienced veteran in the genre, and it really showcases itself in how ice cold and just overall frigid the instrumentation on this record is. They really do a good job of blending the line between like the old school, say, Transylvanian Hunger, A Blaze in the Northern Sky type of so raw and rigid production style, and some more easy to comprehend production style, and I think that really does pay heed to how far black metal has come throughout the years, and I think it does a good job of making this whole project have a good sound to it, a good resonance to it, and I think you need that when you're performing a style like black metal that has its roots so ingrained in maintaining the status quo and not really experimenting. But nowadays, when you have bands like Liturgy and bands in the black gaze movement like Alcest, as well as Death Heaven, you're really seeing a lot of black metal bands push themselves forward, and Gauls Word is at this middle ground where they're performing the old school style, they're just updating the production a little bit to sound more crisp. And personally, I like that a lot, and I also respect that. It's just a great black metal record. And one that I think that newcomers to the genre, as well as purists and old school fans, will enjoy. At number 38, I have the Opeth record, Incauda Venenum. I think this is the band's best project in their prog era, period, bar none. I think that they do it the best they have ever done on this record. They've always dabbled in progressive music on their past releases, mixed it with death metal and different genres within that, but in the 2010s they've really went full force into the whole prog rock and prog metal territory, and I think Incauda Venenum is their best effort yet when it comes to that style, and I was thoroughly impressed by this record. At number 37, I have the As I Lay Dying record, Shaped by Fire, their glorious return. Tim sounds great on this record, barring all of his previous things. I really suggest watching that one video where they sat down and just talked about it, because it's a really good heart-to-heart. But this is a really good return for the metalcore band, one of the greats of the 2000s, one of the bands that catapulted the genre into mainstream popularity, and they've always been one of the more consistent bands of the metalcore genre that have never really shifted their sound. The only thing different about Shaped by Fire is they have a better production style. Their production style is a lot more crisp, it's a lot more punchy. At number 36, I have the Tomb Mold record, Planetary Clairvoyance. $20 spin, man. Great year. I've said it up and down. I even made a video that was like the return of OSDM, old school death metal. This has that grit. This has that resonance. This has that vigor. This has that dingy production style. This has this very simplistic, guttural, growling vocal style. Very deep, dingy instrumentation throughout the entire thing. It all just has this cacophonous feel to it. It all has this asphyxiating feel to it. It makes it feel like you are just in a dark, dark cave with absolutely no light, and you hear odd sounds in the distance, and you're not really sure where those sounds are coming from. At number 35, I have the Juju record, Girl with Basket of Fruit. How do you explain Juju at this point? Jamie Stewart is a madman. His concepts are crazy, and this record is no different. It is oddball. It is weird. It's unnerving. It's disturbing a lot of times just how weird some of these tracks are. Just droning instrumentation, this post-industrial sound. Jamie Stewart performing what can only be described as half spoken word, half despondent ramblings that are incoherent at times, with some poetic semblances that are laced interwovenly, kind of like that Daughters record last year. Think of that. But instead of shouting into oblivion, it's just going on forever in this continuous loop of just and it'll definitely be regarded as one of the weirdest records, one of the most intriguing and unique records to come out this year, but I don't expect anything else from Juju at this point. Like, I would be surprised if this wasn't one of the most unnerving releases of the year. A distinction I wholeheartedly believe they will always upkeep as long as they continue on this stride, this creative hit. At 34, I have the JPEGMAFIA record, All My Heroes Are Cornballs, coming off of the high that was Veteran last year. JPEGMAFIA is just doing a bit of a different version of that, not necessarily as deconstructed as Times, but still has a lot of avant-garde beats. He does more singing on this record, and I would say some of these instrumentals are a little bit stripped back by Peggy's standards, and that's saying a lot considering usually his instrumentation can be very busy, very glitchy, very odd, very industrial, very extreme at times, kind of something similar to what you get with the Death Grips, but just toned down a tiny bit to not always be as noisy. I've enjoyed a lot of the singles that he's dropped this year. I enjoyed a lot of the deep cuts in this record, which is something I can't say for a lot of bands and artists that are in the current rap game field, as sometimes their latter halves can sink, but you can't really lump Peggy into that field of the general population because he's so odd. He's like rap's outcast. He's the black sheep of rap. He just kind of stands on the outskirts, does whatever he wants, and his fan base admires and loves whatever he does without him really being the rapper that everybody knows. Although he is working with a lot of different producers nowadays, he's working with a lot of different artists nowadays, and people are finally taking note that he's a lot better than he's been given credit for. At number 33, I have the Pissgrave record, Posthumous Humiliation. You know, I have a trajectory this year of liking records that a lot of people didn't like, and disliking some records that a lot of people did like. You know, this Pissgrave record is just one of the most chaotically messy, bloody, and gory records, and that's part of the reason I like it. I like it because it's so dark. It is so badly mixed in the best way possible. The vocals sound so watery. They just engulf the mix as a whole. They make it just so it's swallowing the mix, and all the instrumentation is just pounding in the background. It's one of the grossest death metal records you hear this year, just kind of like their Suicide Euphoria album, although I would say this is even more rigid, even more raw, even more flavorful when it comes to it. Not the most dynamic record, but it's definitely just a fun gore show to listen to. At number 32, I have See Space Cowboy with the correlation between entrance and exit wounds. This band is pretty much in this wave of new bands that are bringing together a sound that is reminiscent of classic, heavy, hectic, chaotic, messy metalcore music, kind of mathcore music. See, Space Cowboy can even be labeled as a sasscore band or a grindcore band. They have a lot going into their sound. They also have hardcore punk sounds to them. That's one of the reasons I enjoy this record so much and enjoy them. They've had a really, really, really bomb-ass year this year because they released songs for the Firing Squad earlier in the year, which was this compilation of previously released material put into one collection of fast tracks. And this record, the correlation between entrance and exit wounds is a flurry. It is so good, and I really do enjoy the production. I know a lot of people didn't enjoy the production for whatever reason, but I personally thought that it made it a better album than it necessarily could have been. And considering that I had the taste tester earlier in the year, and I was still needing more to understand how the band was developing, what sound they were going to have, considering it was just a collection of tracks as opposed to a full-length record, I think this record solidified that See Space Cowboy is a band that I need to keep my eyes on. At number 31, I have the FKE Twiggs record, Magdalene. The avant-pop queen returns. I think that's what I put in the brackets of the title for the review. A lot of people were iffy on this record, and a lot of people really enjoyed this record. I was personally part of the latter. I think she has a very unique style, and even though this isn't as abstract, as avant-garde as what she did on her first record and her EP, I think that this more hushed sound that is just kind of simplistic, like take a track like Holy Terrain, it's definitely not one of the more busier beats or one of the more embellished beats, but with those background vocals and with the simplicity, she really coexists very nicely. At number 30, I have the High As A Kite record, Uranium Heart. Who knew that one of my favorite indie releases was going to just pop out of Norway randomly early in the year and really stay with me? It stuck with me just for how elaborate these songs are constructed, with how rich the sounds are, with how luscious the vocals are, with how lavish the production is. These tracks are very pretty. They're very unassuming a lot of times, but they really do have this epic feel to them a lot of times when they reach their crescendos, when they reach their plateaus, when they really reach that point where they become as massive as they possibly can. I like the soft sections. I like some of the louder sections when the instrumentation kind of swells a little bit. It really does sound great, and it's stuck with me. What can I say? And I will point out, I will say this, I'll add this. This has one of the best start to finish track lists of any album on this list. I really can listen to the whole record and not get tired of it. At number 29, I have Tyler, the Creator with Igor. It's grown on me quite a bit from my initial review. I was surprised more people didn't get angry that I didn't acclaim this album like a lot of people, but with repeated listens, it's one of the most unique records to come out this decade, dare I say, not just this year. It's so weird to hear Tyler, the Creator, embrace this singing, this very pitched up, wobbly singing. A lot of people call it lo-fi, a lot of people call it a bad production. He did it intentionally to give himself that sound. He built on the soul, and he built on the R&B of Flower Boy in a way that I don't think anyone could have anticipated. Maybe they would have anticipated he was going to go in even more of a jazz and soul direction, but I don't think they could have even anticipated or even begun to fathom the direction that Tyler was going to go on this record with tracks like Earthquake. Like, take a track like that. How can you really explain that? But he does have some bangers, even though they're few and far between. This is a very lovesick, heartbroken record with some very good instrumentation, and like I said, with that lo-fi production style, he comes through sounding very odd. Like, this is one of the most weird and unique sounding records of the year, even though it's very pretty to listen to, even though it's very, nice to listen to. It's pleasant, it's neat, it's fun to listen to. It still has this really interesting production style that ties it all together in a bow. At number 28, I have the Billie Eilish record, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? Okay. Music has a habit of having the it person, whether it be the it girl or the it boy, that dominates a period of time where everyone likes them. The distinction that I think Billie Eilish holds, taking myself apart from someone that genuinely thinks that she has good production style thanks to Phineas O'Connell, her brother, she has one of the most interesting sounds in modern pop this decade. That's coming from someone that has literally been a part of this decade, that has followed music this decade, that has heard what is popular this decade. And I cannot point to many artists and say, they sound like Billie Eilish. that they have this hushed delivery, that they have this intimate singing style, that they have this dark, sometimes industrial instrumentation, that they have this very close to the mic claustrophobic singing, that they have this claustrophobic production style, that they have these types of themes that are put in front of a mainstream audience of mental health and of depression and of lovesick territory in the way Billie Eilish handles it. I can't point to many except maybe like Lana Del Rey, so maybe Lorde, but even they have a lot more power to them and they don't go as dreary sometimes as Billie Eilish does. I just think that she is one of the most unique artists to really blow up recently, and I'm super excited to see if she can keep up this trajectory, if she can keep making music that is this involved with this new style. And mark my words, I feel like a lot of people are going to be influenced and inspired by Billie Eilish going into the 2020s. I wouldn't be surprised if by the mid-2020s, like let's say 2025, 2026, that you may not start hearing, you will start hearing artists that are very reminiscent of the sound of this record. I could see that production style becoming popular, and if not that, then at least the hushed delivery. But that's just a theory, a game theory. Needless to say, I think it's just one of the better pop albums to come out this year. I really love pretty much all of the tracks on this record to some degree. At number 27, I have the Bring Me the Horizon album, Amo. Not their best, not their best record, but very interesting, very, very interesting, considering that That's the Spirit was this major difference from what you got on Sempiternal, and then Sempiternal was fairly different than what you got on There's a Hell, very different from, you can just go down the list. Bring Me the Horizon constantly evolves, they're constantly changing up their sound. Amo is them delving into synth pop and electro pop, with not many of these tracks being straight up rock instrumentation. You have some, you have like Mantra, you have Wonderful Life with Danny Filth, and of course you have heavy metal, but for the most part, they bring in some different instrumentation. Take a track like Nihilist Blues or In the Dark. When would you have heard a track from Bring Me the Horizon circa 2013 that sounded anything similar to this? Take me back to Sempiternal area, and I literally would not believe you if you told me that they were going to go in this direction out of every direction. Show me a track like Medicine, show me a track like Mother Tongue, and I would just be like, whoa, or like Don't Know What to Say with the arranged strings. It's so odd, but I do think it's endearing. I like the qualities that they bring into their sound. I like Why You Gotta Kick Me When I'm Down is EDM and trap influence. Like it's so difficult to really wrap my head around this transition, but I'm here for it. I'm loving it. I'm excited to see where they go in the future. At number 26, I have King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard with Infest the Rat's Nest. King Gizzard made a thrash metal album. A thrash metal album. I feel like everyone said this at this point, but King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard made a thrash metal album. They're so weird, they're so experimental, but they bear the torch, they hold the torch of the past generation of epic thrash metal proportions while still injecting their own oddities into their own sound. King Gizzard is an anomaly. They're so weird. They're like they're the most interesting band right now in Australia, in my opinion. I mean, Flying Microtonal Banana, Gumboat Soup, Murder of the Universe, Nonagon Infinity, Fishing for Fishies. Who's making records that are this dynamic in a string and still maintaining a fan base? I find that sometimes more impressive. But yeah, I love the production on this. They even kind of downgraded their mixing a little bit to sound old school, like an old school thrash metal record. And it's just great. The vocals are great. Stu does amazing. And it's just a great record. At number 25, I have Full of Hell with Weeping Choir. Once again, a lot of people didn't like this record as much as I did. It's their most dynamic. Bar none, it's their most dynamic. I don't think any of their records, and that really is including their collaborations with, say, The Body or with Merzbow or some of their splits they've done throughout the years, are as dynamic as this record. Armory of Obsidian Glass is a track that I would have never assumed Full of Hell would have written. It's super sludgy, it's super doomy, it's super distorted, it's super heavy to listen to, and the more cut and dry grindcore tracks and power violence tracks that are more akin to what you would have gotten on, say, Trumpeting Ecstasy are just great. They're balls to the wall. Just like their last record, Kurt Ballou of Converge is on the production, so you know it's just going to sound like a dense, impenetrable wall, and Full of Hell definitely has one of the best production styles in grindcore right now. Everything is just fully audible. Everything is fully hellish and in your face. It is a great record. Check it out. At number 24, I have Legion of the Damned with Slaves of the Shadow Realm. This was the first record of the year that I gave an extremely positive review to. I gave it a 9, and it has stuck with me. This is my personal thrash metal album of the year. I know for a lot of people it was the Overkill record. It's probably going to be the King Gizzard record for a lot of people. For me personally, I just really think this is a fantastic thrash metal record. Kind of black metal inspired with some of the vocals. It's kind of a blackened thrash metal album. I love the buzzsaw instrumentation. I love how rough and ravenous these tracks sound. They sound like a voracious beast that is about to devour you. They are that high octane. And I think it pays heed to how good it is considering the fact that it has retained its relevancy for me throughout all this time. At number 23, I have the Keaton Henson record, 6 Lethargies. I believe this is the most recently reviewed thing on this list. I love Keaton Henson. I love his folk music. I love his kind of classical music. And I love his indie music. He does this style so much justice where a lot of people really aren't nowadays. It is so beautiful. It is so well organized. And through his own struggles, I think he makes his instrumentation talk volumes. Where there are no vocals, where vocals don't even need to be present, I think he does so good on that. At number 22, I have the Sun record, Pyroclast. Shout out to Life Metal because I do really love that record. I just think Pyroclast is maybe a little bit better just because it doesn't have those female vocals. I'm sorry I keep bashing those vocals. I just really still don't like them to this day when I listen to Life Metal. Pyroclast, even though it is shorter, it just has this really lively production style. It's a drone metal album. It's Sun. What do you expect? They are just a wall of noise just going forward like a thick fog, and boy do they do this style justice. I'm so glad that they've returned and actually have that classic style, not like Canon, which was just this little brief thing, not a little collaboration. This feels like Sun in top form, like Monoliths and Dimensions level Sun, in my opinion. At number 21, I have the Emotionless White record, Disguise. Really big surprise for me this year. I really enjoyed Reincarnate, and I like Graveyard Shift, but I didn't think that they were going to come through with so many really relatable, really poetic tracks that have more of just a alternative metal and just normal metalcore flair. Take a track like Another Life, or take a track like Holding On to Smoke, which they were dual. They were tied for like one of my favorite singles. They were very, very high up on the list. I believe they were maybe like, they were high up. I want to say 10, but it was very high up. And Disguise overall is a great record. You're still getting those ghoulish, undead type of themes, but for the most part, this record is kind of sad. It's kind of sappy. And Chris Motionless has done a great job of improving his vocals to sound even better than they ever have prior to this record. And that's saying a lot because he's always had some really raspy, gothic-esque vocals. And this is just a great kind of gothic rock-tinged alt-metal, metalcore record with quite a bit of musical diversity and a good production style to it. At number 20, I have the Clipping record, There Existed an Addiction to Blood. Drink it up, drink it up, drink it up, drink it up, 50 is bad enough. David Diggs, one of the best MCs in the game right now, one of the coldest MCs in the game right now. This is a horrorcore record from a band that plays around with different topics, plays around with different concepts. So glad that David has found time to still be in his little kind of somewhat underground experimental hip-hop, glitchy hip-hop, industrial hip-hop, hardcore hip-hop, whatever you want to call it, project, because Clipping, no one's quite like them in the game, and Blood of the Fang, come on, Blood of the Fang is just, this whole record, I'm just like sitting here thinking about the production. It's so dark, but it still has that like rigid feel that Clipping usually has, that anyone that's listened to them for a prolonged period of time will understand. At number 19, I have the Clairo record, Immunity. Really great indie record. Really great indie record. I love how unassuming, unintrusive, quiet this record is. It doesn't jump out at you. She doesn't have the most standout vocal talents. Like, she doesn't jump out at you with like massive high notes. It's just soft. It's sad. It has a rainy day type of feel. This is not a thunderstorm. This is the clouds moving in before the thunderstorm. That's such a weird analogy to describe her, but it really does make sense. I feel like all of these instrumentals just have this really cutesy feel, but this sad underlying melody to them. And even though some of their harmonies are very simplistic, some of the drum patterns are very simplistic, such as on a track like Bags, she comes through with a track list that is very, very tight and really, really flawless for this style, even if she's not the most standout in her style. And number 18, I have the Anamanaguchi record, USA. Come on, BSX. Lorem Ipsum, my favorite single of the year, is on this record. USA, the self-titled track. Tear. This is an amazing 8-bit bit pop chiptune record. Endless Fantasy let me down a bit. I wasn't a big fan of that record because I felt it was a little bit bloated for Anamanaguchi standards, but in comparison, this track listing is so tight. It is just so fun to listen to, but invokes these underlying emotions that I personally really enjoy quite a bit. Definitely one of the best records in its field. Actually, when it comes to bit pop and chiptune, I've not heard a better record than this. At number 17, I have the Injury Reserve self-titled album. This has some of my favorite songs of the year. Gravy and Biscuits, Jailbreak the Tesla, like this really does Jawbreaker. This track listing is great. It really is great from start to finish, and the trio has such great chemistry, like of some of the best chemistry of any group nowadays. If I had to say at least one that maybe has a little bit better, it might be Brockhampton. At number 16, I have Periphery with Periphery 4, Hellstand. This was the record that got me into Periphery, the thing that I had been begging for so long and could never get into them. I will be honest, I just love that first track so much, the 16 54-second track, if I remember correctly, and the whole record is so sharp, it is so focused in on the Gent sound. You gotta like Gent to like this record, and as a Gent fan, I was so mad at myself for never liking Periphery, for never being able to get into Periphery. This was the turning point. At number 15, I have Tool, Fear Inoculum. Controversial pick. I understand, not everyone likes Fear Inoculum. I think it's a good comeback. That's coming from someone that's not even biased, because I don't think that their discography is as flawless as some people say, but coming from someone that does enjoy 10,000 Days, that does enjoy Lateralis, Fear Inoculum is really good. Tempest is one of the best tracks of the year, hands down, and it's just an amazing record. I think it's not the most dynamic Tool record. I don't think it's the most powerful Tool record, or even the most progressive Tool record. I think people set their expectations too high. I think people set the bar higher than Tool could ever reach, and that was a topic that a lot of mainstream Tool fans didn't really cover, but a lot of underground Tool fans were asking each other. I even believe that Cover Killer Nation did a video a long time ago that was like, can Tool live up to their expectations? And the answer is, I think no. And I don't think that's any fault of the band. I think it's just the large gap and the legend status that Tool has really coming to bite them in the ass no matter what they do. At number 14, I have Car Bomb with Mordial. Mathcore record of the year, super heavy sound. It's a mathcore record with Gent influence, and that's something I don't hear that much. I don't hear many records that dabble in that. This is like if Dillinger Escape Plan merged with, say, Born of Osiris, and it's such a weird combination, but I just love it. I loved it from the first few tracks. It's so well orchestrated, even though it can feel chaotic, even though it can feel so messy, and there's just the instrumentation, the composition is so busy, there's so much going on. If you read between the lines, the more times you listen to it, it is very meticulously organized. At number 13, I have Takafumi Matsubara with Strange, Beautiful, and Fast. Takafumi Matsubara should have never, ever, ever been able to make another album. He had a brain injury, paralyzed his hand. He's a guitarist, and he shouldn't have been able to make another record. He's linked to Gridlink and all that, but he shouldn't have. He really shouldn't have, but he did. And he brought together vocalists, he brought together drummers, from across the grind field, from across the sludge field, from across the power violence field. And this is a dynamic record. It's like a compilation. It plays out like a compilation, considering how it's just a bunch of different people coming together. But this really does feel like this joint project of Takafumi Matsubara playing his ass off, and being backed by a lot of great vocalists and a lot of great drummers in the field. And it's so interesting to hear their input with their instrumentation and their vocal style coming from what you would perceive from their band, what you would expect from their band. And hearing that alongside Takafumi's guitar work, it's more than I really could have asked for. At number 12, I have the Numenorian record, Adore. Love this from the very first time that I heard the track Regret. That was the track that got me into this record, and it became one of my most anticipated records of the year. I was waiting eagerly, anticipating it. The singles were fire, and then it came out, and I was like, this is even better than I anticipated. This, in my opinion, is the best record of the year to have the whole progressive post-black metal sound. I wouldn't label this record as black gaze. This isn't comparable to, say, an Alcest or a Death Heaven, but it is very post-black metal. It's not black gaze, but it's post-black metal. It has that atmosphere. On some of these tracks, it's just straight atmosphere, and I really, really enjoy it for that. At number 11, I have the Chelsea Wolfe record, Birth of Violence. Her return to form, going back to her folk roots. I'm a big folk fan, and even though I do enjoy a lot of her takes on the dark wave soundscapes where she goes more dreary, I think she does this style really well. And seeing her go back to it, she is still one of the best contemporary folk artists. She's still one of the artists that I think incorporates that old school simplicity with that grit, that natural grit, especially through her lyricism, especially through her natural rasp in her voice when she's singing. I just think it's a great folk record. I know a lot of people disagreed with me, but I think that Chelsea Wolfe should make more records like Birth of Violence, not necessarily every album, but every once in a while, because it was super fresh to hear her come through with a record like this. We are in the top 10, the highest echelon. You can't go any further than these records. These are my absolute favorite records of the year. I'm very excited. Let's go. At number 10, I have the self-titled Angelmaker album. I remember this is one of my proudest moments of the year when it comes to recommending something, because I remember when I dropped my review of it, there were some of you guys that were checking it out that didn't know who Angelmaker was, and I got messages, a lot of messages, saying, wow, you put me onto this. Thank you so much. It's one of the best deathcore releases in the past few years, and definitely, bar none, the best true deathcore record of the year. It's not super experimental, but the compositions are just great. It's hard to explain how off-kilter some of these deathcore instrumentals can be while still maintaining that original sound. And the production is not too overly produced, but it's not too lo-fi. I really like that about it. At number 9, I have the Brand of Sacrifice record, God Hand. Can this be considered a deathcore record? Because this is my deathcore album of the year, if so. Or is it a slam record? It's a brutal slamming deathcore record. What labels. Who the hell cares? I hate myself for loving this as much as I do. I feel like this is going to be a pick that people are like, what? I just love the sound of this record. The drums are so mechanically proficient. They're funny at times. The guitars are so buzzsaw. The production is so over the top. And it's just so great. I love the mixture of shrieked vocals, growled vocals. The mixing on the vocals are not too compressed, but they're very, very in your face when it comes to the mix. Divinity is an amazing track. I just think that's the best track to try out if you want a taste tester for what you're going to get going into the record. It's just great. I like it a lot. At number 8, I have the Hannah Diamond record, Reflections. This is my pop album of the year, even though it is sort of a half compilation. It's her debut album. There's a lot going into it. She had dropped a lot of singles prior to the release of this record throughout the years, but this is her debut album. I think she incorporates and embodies a lot of the PC music aesthetics even better than someone like Charlie XCX can, considering Hannah Diamond is one of the really spokeswomen for the label, when she is one of the poster girls for the label. She has that style, she has that aesthetic, she has that sound to her, and I think that is just incorporated perfectly in all of the tracks on this record. It's twinkly, it is abstract, it is unique, but it is not so off the beaten path that they can't be accessible, that they can't be catchy, because they certainly are. Number 7 is Cattle Decapitation's record, Death Atlas. I want to read a little excerpt from something that I wrote on Anthony Fantano's review. I'm not going to read the full comment, but I disagreed with his review personally, and one thing that I said here I think really holds. So this is, I disagree quite a bit. This is coming from someone that's been a fan for quite some time. I feel like it is a cataclysmic, finite point of no return. Unlike many of their previous material, which was coming to that point, the dreary melodicism here makes me feel like we've reached that point. Even with the album art reflects such a thing. Before, it was an album of artwork, humans getting back what we deserve, then it was apocalyptic with Monolith, then it was dystopian altogether with Anthropocene, and now Death himself is just holding up this broken, cindered earth. Not to mention, to me, I think Death Atlas is one of their best songs of the year. It's so dizzying and intoxicating to listen to. I think that holds. I think this is the point that Cattle Decapitation has been getting at, that they have been building to over time. And I think it's great. One Day Closer to the End of the World is a great track. Death Atlas is one of the best tracks of the year. And I know a lot of people didn't like Travis Ryan's really raspy vocals, but there's no one in Death Grind that is tackling topics like this. There's no one in Death Grind that sounds like this. Whether you're talking about production style, whether you're talking about vocals, considering Travis Ryan is one of the best of the game. I can talk until I'm blue in the face about that. Or just the overall sound. They're so unique. At number 6, I have the Little Sims record, Gray Area. I love the narrative of this record. I love the bad bitch delivery. I love the I don't care what you think about me delivery. I love the female empowerment narrative that comes up on tracks like Venom, which is an amazing track, even though it is a little bit amateur in a way. Like, it's weird how it feels that way. She is such a machine on this record. She is so strong on this record. She has an amazing flow that just sounds smooth as silk. It doesn't even sound like she's flowing. It sounds like she's just really speedily talking in a way. That's how good it is. And her lyrics are strong, they're straight, they're sharp, they're always on point. She has good double entendres, she has good double meanings just in general. She has blunt lyrics, she has sad lyrics, she has introspective lyrics, she has hard lyrics, and a sound that is really proving why British rap is becoming more and more in the mainstream with her and Slow Tie. And there are just a lot of really great British rappers right now, whether you're talking about grime or conscious hip-hop or political hip-hop. So coming through with number 5, I have the Apparat record LP5. We're going into the top 5. Best electronic album of the year, just has a great sound to it. Can't really explain how much this record means to me. It's even grown on me. I'd probably give it a 9 nowadays. Voidu and Dewan are just amazing tracks. His weird electronic warbly close to the mic singing is great. I love how ambient a lot of these tracks can take on. It's an IDM record, if that's any indication. At number 4, I have the NF record, The Search. NF's on another level when it comes to lyricism, when it comes to instrumentation, doing things that a lot of rappers won't really touch in the mainstream field, although there are more people moving towards it, whether you're talking about like Whit Lowry. That's a good example of someone that kind of sounds a little bit like NF, and I think he is inspiring a lot of people in his genre. He's conscious, he is dark, he isn't afraid to tackle topics of mental health, his own struggles throughout his fame, and it's a great track list from start to finish. Tracks like My Stress and Nate and Changes and Time, The Search, Leave Me Alone. I mean, it's really strong, and it has a cohesive flow from track to track and a kind of a story, which is something I appreciate a lot from a rap record. Not to mention there's not a ton of features, and there's not a ton of producers. It's very organic sounding. At number 3, I have Hell Young with Futha, the coolest record arguably that I've heard this year. Hell Young is, if you didn't know, this experimental folk band that plays with weird instruments, that plays with like bones and rattles and weird like pots and old school architecture that they use for instrumentation. They wear very elaborate costumes on stage. I highly suggest watching some of their live performances. They're awesome. With Odd, like, I know that they derived their lyrics from an old Slavic language. It's so damn cool. And with Odd vocals, they have the I believe triple vocalist. Yeah, triple vocalist. They have the ethereal vocalist, and they have this like Mongolian throat singing. This like, I can't even do it. No, that's not it. Just like so, but it's down in that register. It's very, very low in the throat. It's great. It's weird. If you want an experience that is odd. That is something like nothing you're hearing in folk music or any music in general. Check it out, please. At number 2, I have Sayer with Forgotten Paths. This is a one-man project. This is a black metal project that has folk tendencies. It's a blackened folk metal record. Oh my god, when I first heard this, I fell in love with it, and I remember, I think I listened to it like 4 or 5 times that day alone. It's so good. He does this style so much justice. I hate black and folk metal. I do. I don't like, and that's coming from someone that loves folk metal and really likes black metal. I think he does it justice that where a lot of people don't. I think it sounds amazing from start to finish. I love how he incorporates the sounds that a lot of bands fail to. It's one of my issues with a lot of black gaze bands. He incorporates the flute so well and the vocals that come out of the female vocalists on that one track, as well as just the overall black metal vocals that are howling away. Just sounds so emotional over this black and folk metal instrumentation, and I just can't say enough good things about this record. I need to stop talking. And number 1, my favorite record of the year. We're finally here. Swallow the Sun, When a Shadow is Forced into the Light. This is a progressive metal, progressive rock record with black metal tendencies, and it's amazing. It is the tightest track listing of the year. I can say that, not just because it's my number 1 album, but because it just simply is the strongest track listing. It is meticulous at times, but simplistic. If you listen to a track like Crimson Crown, the instrumentation isn't that extreme. It's not that out there when it comes to composition, but those little subtle pianos playing at different times alongside the vocals kind of sounding like it's matching the pitch of the vocals as it swelters, you know? I kind of knew it was my album of the year from the start. That's just between us, even though I did give other scores that were that length, that high. I knew it because no record impacted me the same. And there we go. That's my favorite records of the year. Thank you all for such a great year. Go ahead, let me know in the comment section below what were your favorite albums of the year and why. I'd love to hear it. I can't wait to respond to you guys' comments. I'm very excited. Be sure to like this video and share it. Subscribe if you happen to be new here. If you've lasted and you're new here, hey, what's up? I'm Jay Morris. My voice hurts. God, my voice hurts. My voice hurts. Anyways, guys, you know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, the Review Guy. I'm signing off saying farewell.